So once again, I wanted to welcome everyone to today's event, EVs Are Hot, Hot, Hot. And today it's appropriate because we have hot weather this week. So my name is Megan Lochter. I'm a program manager on the community involvement team, which is basically the events team here at PSE. And I am also an Eevee owner. I have a 2015 Nissan Leaf that I bought pre-owned. So yes, I'm here to tell, I'm part of the owners that just likes to talk about EVs.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Crawford. I am the outreach manager in Kittitas County and I also help out with the electric vehicle team. I also own a Nissan Leaf. My wife and I bought that used a couple of years ago, and it's in 2017.
Hi, my name is Michael Harthorn. I'm the marketing manager for our electric vehicle program here at PSE, as well as our voluntary renewable energy programs.
And I guess that leaves me, Troy Wallenschlegel. As you can see, a Ribbian owner, and I've been following EVs for quite some time, and the Ribbian is my first EV.
Right, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so for everybody that is joining this webinar today, you have automatically been entered into winning one of two prizes. And so that includes 2 Stanley 30-ounce tumblers and a copy of the Washington Bucket List Adventure Guide. So we will be drawing those 2 winners later today. And if you are one of those winners, you will be receiving an email. And so good luck to everybody on the call. All right, now we are going to test your knowledge. So feel free to participate. If you think you know the answer to one of these questions, go ahead and put it in that chat box. And so let's go ahead and spin the wheel for the first time. All these questions have to do with electric vehicles. So the first one has to do with EV models. How many electric vehicle models are currently available for under $30,000, including incentives in Washington state? Is it A2, B4, C6, or D8? Let's go ahead and pass this off to Megan. What are your thoughts on this?
Gosh, okay. I know the incentives recently changed, so I'm going to guess C6.
Okay, I think that's a good guess. We're seeing in the chat box those answers are coming in all over the place. So let's go ahead and show that answer. All right, sure enough, the answer is C6. And of course, that's constantly fluctuating and changing based on different incentives and different vehicle prices. Let's go ahead and spin again. So we'll do one more of these. And this one's about the environment. So taking into account electricity generation, your CO2 emissions per miles can be approximately how many times lower in an EV than a gas-powered vehicle in Washington state? Is it A3, B5, C7, or D9? Let's go ahead and call on Michael. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I know the answer, but I will say that Washington State is one of the best places to drive an EV based on our statewide power mix. So if you switch from a gas-powered car to an electric-powered one, you're doing pretty well here.
Okay, so let's go ahead and show that answer. Sure enough, D9. So it will be 9 times lower in an EV than a gas-powered vehicle. So good job, everybody. Thanks for playing. We'll go ahead and close this out and we will continue on into a poll. And so we have one question for you. And if you were to purchase an EV, where is the first place you would take that new EV? Is it to show off your friends and family, the kids carpool, to a trailhead, on a road trip adventure, anywhere but the gas station, or is it something else? You can go ahead and put that into the chat. And I want to call on Troy on this one. Troy, where's the first place you took your EV or wanted to take your EV when you purchased it?
Well, the one thing about the Rivien is they're really designed as an adventure vehicle. As a matter of fact, Rivien is putting in free to anybody charges in most of the national parks. They're working on doing that. So that's an awesome benefit that you can get at some of the national parks. But certainly want to take off-road. And Megan was mentioning earlier that the 3 Ps, you need a first aid kit. Well, the Rivien comes with one, so that's kind of cool. And if you do win the adventure guide and the prize, you can use that with your Rivien too.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Troy. Lots of great answers coming into the chat. Let's go ahead and close that poll. I'm not seeing it pop up. Okay, there we go. And it looks like 54% of everybody on this webinar said anywhere but the gas station. And yes, owning an EV, that is one of the best things about it, is you don't have to stop at the gas station, and you could just plug it into the outlet in your garage and let it charge overnight. All right, at this time, I'm going to hand it off to Michael, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about electric vehicles.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending our event. I just want to talk about why PSE is hosting this in the first place. There's a couple of reasons. One, there are nearly 105,000 registered EVs in Washington State. A lot of those are our customers, and we want to make it as easy and convenient as possible for them to charge their vehicles, whether that's at home, out in public, at work, wherever you might go. The other reason is we're excited about electric vehicles. If you haven't switched yet, we want to offer a lot of information, guide you through that process when you're ready to buy a new vehicle, and help you consider whether electric vehicle is right for you. So why go electric? There are a couple big selling points. One, you can save money. Electric vehicles, while having a higher upfront cost at the moment, though they are getting cheaper, can actually be cheaper to own in the long run. That's thanks to savings on fuel. Electricity is significantly cheaper than gas, as well as savings on maintenance. Plus, not to mention incentives that we'll talk about in a little bit here. They're also better for the environment. We covered that in the quiz already. In Washington State, thanks to our fuel mix, you can have 9 times fewer emissions just driving than you would with a gas-powered car. And long-term or larger studies have shown that EVs are better for the environment, even when taking into account things like battery manufacturing or mining for minerals. It complicates the picture, but they still come out on top environmentally over gas-powered vehicles. Finally, they're fun to drive. They're new, they're exciting. I'm sure Troy will be able to tell you that in a little bit. They have the newest technology, and they feel zippy when you press down on that go pedal. All right, so a little more about those savings. It's a good place to start. It's what people think about when they buy a new vehicle. A study from Consumer Reports found that long-term ownership costs are $6,000 to $10,000 less than for gas-powered vehicles, even when taking into account the higher purchase price. And then when I mentioned savings on fuel and maintenance on that last slide, you can see a little bit about the fuel savings there in that chart. They are considerable, especially with gas as high as it is right now. But maintenance also you can save. Electric vehicles don't require things like oil changes. That's a big one. Really, you're just looking at rotating the tires, replacing windshield fluid, and a couple other things. I've talked to customers who have owned electric vehicles for a decade almost and have spent very little on maintenance. It's pretty exciting for them. All right, so let's talk incentives. Megan alluded to this earlier. They did just get more complicated thanks to the newly passed Inflation Reduction Act. So there are incentives both at the state and federal level. You can save up to $8,800 total with both of those at the moment. The federal tax credit, you can save up to $7,500 on a new EV and $4,000 on some used EVs. That federal used EV tax credit is new with the recently passed IRA. So the good news with that new IRA is that models from Chevy and Tesla, which have previously not been getting any federal incentives, now do again. The bad news is it's a little more complicated. It depends on factors like household income, the price of the vehicle, where the vehicle is manufactured, where the components for the battery are mined. So incentives are a little more complicated, but you'll definitely still get some on many electric vehicles from the federal level. At the state level, it's a little simpler. You can save up to $1,300 on sales tax on a new EV priced under $45,000, and on the up to just a little over $1,000 currently on a used EV priced under $30,000. One of the big questions people have about electric vehicles is how's it going to change my life? And the answer is charging. You're not going to be going to a gas station anymore. We say that charging is no big deal with a little planning. So let's talk about what we mean. Level 1 charging is the first kind of charging you'll see with electric vehicles. You do this at home. It's just with the cable that comes with pretty much every electric vehicle model. So you buy an electric vehicle model, you get a cable, and you can plug it into any standard outlet. You're only going to get about 2 to 5 miles of range per hour of charging, but you can plug in anywhere, which is very convenient. No extra equipment needed. And for a lot of people, they actually get by just fine with this. I know a number of my coworkers just use level 1 charging at home, charge overnight, and they're good to go in the morning. The average range for new EVs now is around 250 miles. Most people don't drive that in a day. So if you're just driving regular 10, 15 miles to work or to run errands, you can plug that in overnight when you get home and be just fine. If you need more charging or just want speedier charging or more features, we'll move on to level 2 charging. This is something you can install at home with the help of an electrician. It needs a 240 volt outlet similar to a dryer or an electric oven. You can also find these at workplaces, multifamily properties, public charging stations. They'll add about 25 miles of range per hour, but you do have to install them. So you need to look at that. We recommend asking a couple electricians to get a quote. Usually the price is a couple $1,000s for both installation and the charger total, though that can change depending on your house setup. And the final kind of charging we're going to talk about is DC fast charging. This is what you find at public charging locations, including those operated by PSE. You can get a full charge in an hour or so with some of the newer vehicles, closer to 30 minutes. These look almost like gas pumps. You typically pay with an app. Some of them will have credit card readers. They're operated by different companies, so you'll occasionally need a couple different apps to charge with them, but you can't beat it. It does take longer than the gas station stop, but keep in mind, most people, EV drivers, do their charging at home or at work. These are really best for road trips or just to top off as needed. But conveniently, most EV drivers will just charge at home overnight, wake up with a full tank in the morning. All right, finally, your EV choices are growing. There are over 30 electric vehicle models in Washington to choose from. That's just battery only. If you add in plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, it's even more. But really, this is just a lot of options and different kinds of vehicles, especially with the addition of some electric trucks that we were used to just a few years ago. We do have an electric vehicle guide. It's ev.pse.com. You can compare and contrast all these models, learn more about them, tailor them to your driving needs to see what kind of savings you can expect. I will say that we do not have the updated federal incentives on there yet. We're working on getting all of those input, but they're complicated. So we currently just have the older federal incentives listed. So look for changes there soon.
Right. We are going to get into our second and final poll. And so if you're considering an electric vehicle, what is the biggest selling point for you? Is it better for the environment, a better driving experience, the state and federal incentives, saving on taxes, fuel, and maintenance, the increasing popularity and model selection, the cool technology, or is it something else? If it is something else, go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm going to toss this one to Megan. So when you guys were looking at purchasing a new vehicle or a used vehicle, what was the biggest selling point for you for going with an electric vehicle?
I think I want to say all of the above, but I think it's probably like savings on taxes, fuel, and maintenance. For us, we wanted a second car that would just be for like daily commuting around, taking my daughter to school, that kind of stuff. So we didn't need one that had a lot of miles, which is why we went with a pre-owned model. And so it's nice not to have to think about gas and when I bought it, I had to remind the dealership that I didn't need to pay taxes on it. I had to remind them twice that I didn't have to pay taxes, because not all dealers are all familiar with all of those, the benefits to buying an EV. So yeah, I think that would be my answer. It's nice not to worry about oil changes and just to go in, take it in to get the tires looked at or the, wipers changed.
Yep.
It's also reassuring.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for that. Let's go ahead and close that poll. We'll take a look at what everybody said. And coming in at 49% was better for the environment. And second at 32% was savings on taxes, fuel, and maintenance. So thanks everybody for participating in that. I want to move on to my favorite section of this, and that is let's chat with an EV owner. So we had Troy introduce himself a little bit earlier, but he is here to talk to us about his EV ownership experience. So Troy, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. We really appreciate that.
No problem.
We will get started with some questions. So
Sure.
The first question that I had for you is, why did you first start exploring purchasing an electric vehicle?
Kind of looking at that poll that we had, certainly better for the environment. I used to work for a utility, so, familiar with electrical generation and power. So very interested in that. And, I'm a technology geek, I guess you could say. So a lot of the EVs have newer technology like self-driving or auto drive or in the case of the Ribbian, they call it Drive Plus. Obviously, you still need to pay attention, but it has significantly reduced my stress while driving, where the car can deal with a lot more of the mundane things as we go along. And then every once in a while, it's always nice to get a new car.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, thanks. That kind of leads us into our other question is, what made you choose a Rivien over other electric vehicles?
I spent years, probably 4 or 5 years, thinking about EVs, looking at Teslas and other things. I'm a big outdoor person, a big adventure person, do scuba diving, do paddle boarding, kayaking, et cetera, et cetera. And the Rivien is really very focused on that adventure lifestyle. I can keep my wet stuff in the back, in the tail, in the bed of the truck, so useful. And the performance is just amazing. We're talking a pickup truck that can do, one of the polls was, or you had mentioned, I think earlier, acceleration. The Rivien in particular can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. So we're approaching, high performance car speed, which is amazing. Don't do that very often, but it is fun.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been a car guy for my entire life, and just looking at those 0 to 60 times where you had Ferraris and Porsches that were doing 3 seconds or 3.5, 4 seconds, and now you can have a truck that you can use every day, yet you can get that type of performance out of it, which is it's very fun to watch that happen.
Yeah, and certainly the other, the fit and finish and the quality of the Rivien is, for a company that just started producing cars. I think my VIN is about 5,000, so they had 5,000 before mine was made. Okay. Is just unbelievable how well it's made. So that was another choice in buying it. I do have was looking at the F-150 Lightning and also the Cybertruck as well, because they all fit kind of that same niche of needs. And the Rivien happened to come out first, and I'm glad I got it.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that was one of the questions. Is I know that there are some new trucks coming out, including the F-150 Lightning, which I believe just started to get delivered to customers not too long ago. I have not seen one in the wild yet, but I know they are around. Can you give us one tip that you'd give someone looking at EV ownership?
I think the big thing everybody keeps having issues about is that range anxiety. And one of the things that I thought about very hard was how many times I actually went to the gas station outside of the local gas station. I won't mention the brand, but the one that's right down the street from me. And over the past few years, probably a handful, 3 or 4 or 5. Even with the driving that I do out to Leavenworth and over the Hood Canal and such, I don't have to use a regular gas station that often for my style of driving. So having the charger at home, I have a 220 charger, has made my life easier again. I come home, if it looks like I need to put a charge in, I plug it in and there I go. So worrying, if you had one thing to you asked me what one tip is, really don't worry about the range anxiety as much. More chargers are coming out all the time. Most towns seem to have some store or some public park that has even the DC fast chargers. So it hasn't been as big of a deal as I thought it would be.
Yeah, just so we purchased our Nissan Leaf back in 2017, or it's a 2017. We purchased it in 2020, and range anxiety for us was something that we were worried about, but we looked at purchasing the vehicle to get us to and from work, which was about 40 miles round trip. So we didn't have to worry too much about range anxiety with that. But one of the things that I always tell people when they're looking at purchasing an EV is what are you going to use it for? Is it going to be something that you want to use for off-roading, or is it something you want to take on a road trip, or is it specifically going to be to get you around town? And then look specifically at what vehicles are available for that need.
And you kind of mentioned, your purpose. And one of the things on a lot of the forums with the EVs, especially the trucks, is towing. This truck can happen to tow 11,000 pounds, which is more than I think any F-150 can tow. But you do lose range, and that's something that you do have to consider. I do have trailers, I do tow occasionally, and it's just something you have to factor in with something. And EVs are great. I'm glad I have mine. I do have a gas powered truck too, for those times that an EV won't work. You do have to decide what will work for you, and maybe in today's world, an EV isn't going to fit every need you have.
Yeah, great. In your opinion, what's the best part of owning your electric vehicle?
I like not having to, we keep talking about range and stuff. I like not having to go to the gas station. I like not having to get in line to fill up. I like having the storage areas. People, it's funny when I go to the grocery store and pop my frunk and put groceries in the front of my car, when people aren't used. People are more used to that with Teslas and other EV cars, but it's kind of weird seeing a truck with the front open and people putting stuff in. So it's fun.
Yeah, the first time I saw F-150 Lightning, there was actually a kid in where the engine compartment would be, the frunk. So it was pretty interesting watching a kid crawl out of there.
And the Ribbian has the one cool thing about the Ribbian, if you can see in this back behind me, is they have what's called a gear tunnel, and it's also additional storage that goes from the passenger side to the driver's side. And Ribbian is planning on building a camp kitchen that you can buy, and it'll have a sink and electric stovetop and other things in it, and all your silverware right for camping. So, and they also have tents and other things. So going back to my interest in being outdoors, everything that they are thinking about is really related to that.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like they definitely did their research for the outdoors folks. Can you tell us a little bit about your charging routine, and have you used any like public chargers, and how was that experience?
Certainly, for the most part, again, even when I drive far, distance, this has a 320-mile range. If I charge up to 100%, typically EV owners usually keep their battery between 30 and 70%. So that's kind of where the sweet spot is and where I keep it. So I'll charge when it gets down to 50% or so and charge it up to 70. So I do that a couple times a week. I don't plug it in every day when I get home. It's not plugged in now, for example. And as far as using the public chargers, I've tried using some stuff or using chargers at the local grocery store, which are level 2 chargers, and they're only 6 kilowatt hour. So they don't charge a lot. It's 10 or 15 miles an hour. For the amount of time I'm there, it's not too worth it. But I have used some of the DC fast charging just to test it out. And that's worked really well. It charged up to get me home in 10 minutes. So even though it takes a full hour or 45 minutes, depending on the charger, to charge from 0 to 100%, usually people don't charge all the way from 0. So 10, 20 minutes maybe is enough to get you to the next charger, to the next or home. So the again, going back to the range anxiety and the time that people need to add, it isn't as much as I would have thought it was.
Yeah, that's great. I've had a couple experiences charging our Leaf. So we've done a couple small, what we call road trips, but it was just about 100 miles. And we've had the experience of going to some of those public charging stations. And it is a little bit different, where you have to get used to not just going to a gas pump, sticking in your credit card, and then going on your way. You do have to get an app for different charging stations. And then depending on what level that charger is, you will have to take some additional time. But once you get it figured out and you get used to it, it's amazing how quickly it just becomes part of the schedule when you're driving electric vehicle. All right, another question. Have you had to deal with any maintenance on your Ribbian yet? And if you have, what was that experience like?
So far, no. Well, so far, no real maintenance. When I got the Ribbian, the alignment wasn't quite perfect. So I had them just do tune up on the alignment. For people especially in the Seattle area, the Ribbian is great. There is a service center in Bellevue, so either they can come and pick up the vehicle or do what they need to on site, sort of like Tesla is doing, or you can drop it off in Bellevue. And they're adding more service centers around the country as they start delivering, which is one of the reasons why I think you see more Ribbians in the area than you do in some other areas in the country. There's actually quite a few out here.
Excellent.
So no issues though. No, it was pretty easy.
Great. How many miles on it now?
2,000 or 3,000. So
okay.
A lot of local trips. We tend to use. I used to use my motorcycle to drive go up to the grocery store and such, because it got decent gas mileage, as opposed to my F-150 or my Jeep. It's kind of funny now, instead of using the motorcycle, which gets 50 miles per gallon, I just jump into the Rivien, because it gets the equivalent of 70 to 100 miles per gallon, depending on the cost of gas. So it's just really kind of funny. It has changed my, I know you didn't ask that, but it has changed my outlook on where I do and how I do my little trips around town. It's just as easy to get into the truck and drive as it is anything else anymore. Only thing that would be better would be bicycle.
True. Yeah, I know my wife and I fight over who's taking the EV sometimes when we're going to go do some errands around town. It's just so easy to hop in it, press a couple buttons, and you're gone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we always like to ask our guests, what's the longest trip you've taken in your Ribbian? How was that experience?
So far for me, the longest trip was over to Hood Sport on the Hood Canal to go diving, of course. And that was what, 150 miles or so with some errands along the way each way. So we did charge. You were talking about plugging in just with 110. We did plug in. We were staying at a friend's house over there, and I brought as you mentioned, most cars come with a level 1 charger. So I pulled into his driveway and plugged into his outlet on the outside of the house and was good to go on the way back. So it worked out well.
Now I've seen a lot of videos with people taking these Ribbians off-road, and all the ones that I've seen, they've given rave reviews on how it performs off-road. Have you taken it off-road, or do you plan on off-roading the vehicle?
I plan on going, doing some fire roads, nothing serious. But one of the neat features about the Rivien is, or this particular Rivien, is it has four motors. A lot of cars, a lot of EVs will have 1 or 2, and they have the standard differential and other mechanical moving parts that put the energy to all either 2 or 4 wheels, depending if it's 2 or 4-wheel drive. This, because every tire has its own motor, it means it basically can't get stuck unless you're in sand or something that you get no traction.
Sure.
Even with 1 tire down on a rock, it will pull it through, because you have it has 830 horsepower total. So that means each tire has over 200 horsepower alone. So it can move, it can get out. And 900 foot-pounds of torque. For the people that are car people.
I'll have to follow up with you after you take it off road and see how it performs.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and we wanted to see what some of your favorite features were of the vehicle. So if you wanted to show us,
I can, since I'm actually outside, I can show you. The neat thing is, it has this gear tunnel, and you can see I actually keep a set of chairs in here. This is where the camp kitchen would go. It has, it's obviously 4-door with there's a huge panoramic sunroof in here, which makes it very nice to drive in. The other thing for people that, especially when you were talking about off-road, this is the only EV I know of, and most trucks don't have this, has air suspension. So it can go from about 3 inches of lift to 15 or 16 inches of lift. So if you are doing off-roading, it can lift up and get you over almost any rocks. We had mentioned the front trunk. So this has a nice storage area in the front, and it's, again, kind of interesting to see you put things in here. I keep an extra jacket and stuff in. So, the one thing, a couple of the issues that it's not perfect by any means. There's as a physical vehicle, I haven't had any issues. I like it. But as a new car company, a lot of the things, and as a EV, you'll see a lot of vehicles that are software updatable. Tesla does this, Rivien does this, others do it as well. So any of the changes or any of the fixes that you have, you don't need to go to the dealer. You don't need, and I think this kind of goes back to the service. If they want to fix something, something on the screen or something on the way the motors work, you don't actually have to go into a service center to do anything. It's done either via Wi-Fi at the house or just through a cell network as I'm going. So again, you don't have to go in, and any improvements that they do can be done through software, which is amazing, especially for a technology person.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you for showing us around. If you'd stick around for a bit, we might have some questions for you that come up in the Q&A section. All right, we'll move on to that question and answer session. Let's go ahead and bring up the next slide. This is just a reminder. If you wanted to browse models, look at incentives, take a look at charging stations and more, you can go to ev.pse.com. If you do have any questions, maybe come up after this webinar, you can go ahead and shoot us an email. And if you want to learn more and sign up for the Up and Go Electric newsletter that Michael puts out every month, you can sign up for it at pse.com/electric cars. Now I'll hand it off to Megan and we'll go into the Q&A section.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as predicted, we do have some great questions for Troy. Paul is asking, what is the real world range on the Ribbian?
Ribbian, I haven't tested it, but Ribbian, the people that have tested it are very good. They say that the estimates are very accurate. So its real world range is over 300 miles in conserve mode. Obviously, if you put it in sport mode, which gives you that 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, it will go down from there. And I usually drive it in conserve mode, which actually switches it over to 2-wheel drive. And it gets me the most range for the truck. But typically when I charge it to 70%, it's about 230 miles, and I'll go down to 50 or so miles before I charge it up again.
Great, you predicted my next question. Thank you. And question from Jesse: does your Ribbian fit in the garage?
I have too many other hobbies, so it doesn't go in the garage, fortunately, but it would. It's a little bit smaller than an F-150 if you have another pickup truck, which is another reason why I got it for a daily driver. An F-150 is just a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit wider. So this does fit into parking spots around here and the garage a little bit better.
I did see a question in the chat too about concerns leaving your car parked outside and not in a garage. Do you have any concerns about like theft, or are there any pieces of an EV that, like with a gas powered car, there's the catalytic converters, but is there anything with EVs that you have to be concerned about?
Well, I was just going to mention, at least nobody can steal the catalytic converter.
Yeah.
The Ribbian in particular, and I think a lot of the higher end EVs are great. The Ribbian has what they call a gear guard. It actually records has cameras, as with most EVs, higher end EVs have cameras all around. I think there's 12 or more. So it will I will be able to see if somebody walked up to it, and it will alert if anybody did anything. Right now it doesn't like warn my phone. I'm hoping that will be something that they come out with in the future, where if it detects somebody trying to break in, it will actually let me know, because it does have cell service and can do things like that. But I haven't worried at all. Everything is locked. This particular model has a power tonneau cover, so anything in the back, it has a lockable cover. Anything in the front, I keep my camera gear in the front. Nobody's going to open that at all. You can't, break a window. The only thing that they're going to get is my iPhone charger. Everything else is usually securely locked up.
Great. This was a good question. EVs are so innovative. Is there a way to get yourself familiar with driving it? Is there like, I don't know, do you have any tips on how to get comfortable with the transition from driving a gas powered car?
The one thing that the biggest transition that I had is, dealing with the acceleration. Obviously, it can be a little bit different. But with an EV, the thing that a lot of people don't know, I hope maybe people know, is that you actually drive it with 1 foot. You don't use the brake unless you have to. and it does obviously still have brakes. But as the car runs, and when you come up to a stoplight or stop sign or traffic, you just let up on the accelerator, and the car will regeneratively brake and give you more power back, which is kind of weird. Or if you're going down a mountain hill, it will actually come out with more power, more range than you went going into it, which is funny. But some of the people I think I had mentioned, or somebody mentioned, do demo rides. Tesla, Chevy, Ford, etc. usually have cars they're selling, so you can go in and do a demo drive. Rivien has something they call the first mile. If you sign up for them, they will eventually, it may take a while, reach out, and they can either bring a truck out and you can drive it for an hour and see what you think about it. So that's how they're doing that type of demo drives.
Hey, Troy, I had a question for you about that braking. Is there different settings for it, for the regen?
Yeah, you can. I don't know about all the EVs, but in the Ribbian in particular, I think you can disable it, and you can have it or light or I don't know, easy or medium or hard or whatever. I don't know what the terms
Okay.
they use are, but you can adjust how much the regenerative braking is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know for our Nissan Leaf, there's two different settings. There's like a sport and an eco mode, and there's a definite distinctive change when you're in one of those versus the other. And that took quite a bit of getting used to, especially at slow speeds in like a parking lot when you're trying to use your brakes.
Yeah, when I let my foot off the gas pedal, the electron pedal, it significantly slow down, and I have to be careful not to let my foot all the way off quickly when there's a car right behind me. I want to make sure that they have enough time to slow down.
Yeah, we had a question about, you guys really gave great information about brake regeneration. We were wondering, Nate asked this question, if all models of EVs have that. Is that something, it is, as he mentioned, it's uncaptured energy that you don't have to buy, and so it seems like a great way to charge. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
As far as I know, even older Priuses, which were hybrids, had regenerative braking, and that's how they actually charged their batteries, because they didn't plug in at all. So as far as I know, every vehicle has that, every EV and
Great.
hybrid.
Awesome. Can you share your experience about how much you have to pay for your charging at home, or like, has it had much of an impact on your electric bill?
The estimate is probably, again, going from about 30 to 70%, probably $7 or $8. So I have not had it long enough to see a huge change in my energy bill. And it's interesting, longer discussion than we have time for today, but trying to figure out the cost for the level 2 public chargers and things. It's kind of, I call it Rivien math. It's kind of funny as I try to figure things out. But PSE, the cost for energy is pretty good nationwide, so it's not bad. It's under $10 to fill it up, compared to about $100 from my other truck. So
Great. Michael, maybe you can help with this one. In Kitsap County, do you know where somebody might be able to go to see a model in person?
In Kitsap County specifically, no. So one of the, I did mark this that I wanted to talk about it because it brings up a great point, which is that there's a pretty serious inventory shortage with electric vehicles, as there is currently with new gas vehicles also. So it can be hard to go to a dealership and just take a test drive without making an appointment or finding a special way to do that. There are ways to get around that. car shows are a great way when dealers are bringing them directly. We just had the Electrify Expo a couple weeks ago. That was a great opportunity for getting experience and test drives. There is the Seattle International Auto Show coming up in November, which should be another great opportunity for seeing electric vehicles in person. National Drive Electric Week is coming up just at the end of September. So I would go to National Drive Electric Week's website and see if there are any events in your area where electric vehicle owners will be bringing their vehicles to show off, and you can maybe try some of those out, get some firsthand experience. So there are definitely ways to get experience with EVs during this inventory shortage. You just have to get a little creative with it.
And just as a side note, at least for the Rivians, if you're local to the area, there are Facebook groups for some of the more unique vehicles. There's a Seattle Rivien group, and sometimes we talk about doing meetups. We just did a group gathering in Snoqualmie last weekend, and we had I think 7 or 8 Rivians there. So something like that is, if you're interested in a particular model, maybe join a group that talks about that particular model, and you can find people local.
Great. Michael, we have a couple pre-owned vehicle questions, and one is from Maya, who's asking, how long will the Washington State incentives be in place for pre-owned EVs?
Sure. The current state incentives will be around through 2025. They reduce for new EVs at the end of 2023. Used EVs will stay at the same level through 2025. I'd say there's probably a good chance that we either see an extension of incentives or a replacement incentive, just knowing how passionate the current state leadership is about electric vehicles. But the one that's on the books lasts through 2025.
Great. And then, Adam, maybe this is a good one for you. It comes from Vicky, who's a dedicated pre-owned vehicle person. And they would like to know about older EVs and batteries, and whether you have to worry about replacing a battery potentially.
Yeah. So research. We looked for about a year at different used EVs. My wife actually got on the Nissan Leaf forum and had a bunch of questions that came up, especially about batteries, because that was one of our main concerns when buying something that was used. Just our experience on those forums, people were so excited to answer those questions and talk about their Nissan Leaf. So we ended up going to a dealer and looked at the battery health, and we actually purchased a device that you can actually plug into that to the Nissan Leaf, and you can get different reads on its battery health. We saw that it was at full health, and so that's the one that we decided to go with. But if you know of a certain model, again, that you're interested in, I would highly suggest just doing the research behind the history of the battery and how that vehicle has been used, and that'll give you a pretty good indication of the health of the battery.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Adam. We had a question about somebody who drives a 2000 Buick LeSabre and really loves the feel and the quiet cabin, and wondered what the experience would be shifting to an EV. So I can give that out, shout that out to any of you to answer.
I know for me anyway, the EVs are significantly quieter than other vehicles that I've had. It depends on the build and quality of the vehicle. I imagine, the cheaper or the less expensive cars probably have a little bit more noise. The Ribbian is, again, a higher end, so it's really good. You will hear some motor whine depending on what vehicle it is. The Ribbian again has 4 motors, so there's four motors making a little bit of noise, but it's not much. The other thing to remember is that by federal law, all EVs need to make some noise, I think under 30 miles an hour. So you'll hear something coming from them when they're going slow, and that's to prevent sight impaired people from so that sight impaired people can know that they're coming. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, I've had a couple experiences. I had an experience with a 2010 Tesla Roadster, and it was very loud, but it's because they wanted to keep it lightweight and they were using different types of materials in order to do that. And then I've had an experience with a new Tesla Model Y, and it was incredibly quiet. Like Troy said, you can hear the whir of the motors. But one of the weirdest experiences right after we got our EV was pulling up to a stoplight and not hearing anything. There's no rumble of the engine. There's no sound coming from it. And you had to double check and make sure the thing was still on.
It makes ordering at the fast food places a lot easier. They can actually hear you.
That's funny. Great. I have a couple hot topics that we can put here in the last few minutes that we have. Registration tabs. Those tend to be more expensive for EVs than gas-powered cars. And maybe, Michael, can you kind of explain that?
Sure. The reason, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. The reason registering an EV is more expensive currently than a gas-powered car is to make up for the gas taxes that EV drivers aren't paying. As an EV fan, I was obviously like, this registration costs to come down. However, you do have to keep in mind that with this money you're saving on fuel and maintenance, you can easily save $1,000 a year on fuel, if not much more. It covers the increase in registration costs that you're paying for an EV. So when you take everything into consideration, EVs are cheaper on a daily level, and then over long-term ownership, say 10 years, which is the average time an American owns a vehicle, thousands of dollars cheaper, even taking everything into consideration. I believe you're muted, Megan.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure? We had a couple questions about that, whether we can support the transition to EVs.
I believe Paul is in the chat answering those in more detail.
Okay,
He's really the expert
perfect.
there, but just generally, it's something that PSE is preparing for. We have a 5-year transportation electrification plan that we're working through that includes a number of programs, and a big factor of those is load management. So definitely it's something PSE is aware of and confident we can handle. If you want more updates on the transportation electrification plan or what PSE is doing around load management, we'll have some in the near future. The best way to make sure you see those is to sign up for the electric vehicle newsletter that we have the link to. So that comes monthly with what PSE is working on and just other news from around the electric vehicle world.
Great. And maybe our last question here is for Troy here. Can you share how your EV performs climbing hills? Do you need to shift down? Do you need to do anything special to get up that hill?
Well, there's no transmission in most EVs, so there's no shifting ever. Even if you look at a regular ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine, they'll have 5 to 10 gears, and even in an automatic that they have to shift. With an EV, you provide more power, so no problems getting up hills, even the hills in Seattle. As long as you have traction, you will go up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Troy. Thank you so much for all your expertise. And it was really fun learning more about the Ribbian. I think I need to figure out how to test drive one. But for attending today's event, I wanted to let everybody know that you'll be entered to win our adventure prize packet. And so check your email today. We'll notify you if you're one of our lucky winners. And then also in the next couple days, we will be sending an email out with all of the event resources from today, the recording and the links we shared in the chat. And lastly, there is a survey as soon as the event ends that will pop up on your screen. We would love to hear feedback from you, and just would like to know how you felt about today's event. And so if you have any questions, you can put them in the survey, and just make sure to give us your email address if you'd like us to follow up. So that's it for today. I hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday, and take care.
If you do have a Ribbian specific question, join the Ribbian group, because there's good answers there. But thank you. And as we go, I will leave.
See you, Troy.
We're going to watch Troy drive off into the sun. I was going to say sunset, and I just stopped at sun.
It works. Bye. Bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye, everybody.
Hey guys, thank you.